This lesson is going to be about balanced and unbalanced forces, kind of like the part two. The learning target is I can describe the motion of an object using balanced and unbalanced forces. So we've already looked at what are these balanced and unbalanced forces. Now we're going to be using them to describe how objects are actually moving. And so if we look at this problem, we're looking at a biker is moving at a constant speed of 5 meters per second. Are the forces acting on her balanced or unbalanced? If we think about what it means to have an unbalanced force acting on you, for example, if I had somebody, I think the example I used before was if I had somebody, push me over, well, I'm going to fall because I don't have anything to support myself. And so if I have an unbalanced force acting on me, I'm going to accelerate. That's what forces do, is if they're unbalanced, they accelerate the object. But since this biker is moving at a constant speed, her speed's not changing at all. And so we would know that the forces acting on her are balanced. And so that's how we would answer this problem here. So we have this problem. A biker's moving up with a speed of 5 meters per second, then hits the brakes until she slows down to a stop, where the force is acting on her balanced or unbalanced. So we could look the same way. We know that an unbalanced force is going to cause acceleration, and because she slows down to a stop, her speed is changing, and therefore she is accelerating. So not just speeding up is going to be a force acting on her, but also when we slow down, we have an unbalanced force acting on us. If she was balanced, we would be sitting at a rest, or we would be moving at a constant speed. But since her speed changes, we do have an unbalanced force acting on this biker. And so this problem, if we have a skateboarder moving at 2 meters per second to the right, when the following force is acting on him, are these unbalanced or balanced forces? And so we look at these. Remember, we've got to keep our up, down, our verticals. We've got to remember that those are going to affect each other, right? And so if we have the same force acting upwards and downwards, if we didn't have this force of friction here, if we just got rid of this, and we had just the up-down forces acting, those would be balanced forces because they're equal and they're in the opposite direction. Right? But since we have an extra force here, right, these are unbalanced forces. This force of friction isn't balanced out by anything. And so this would be an example of an unbalanced force. Right here, unbalanced force. And so because there's an unbalanced force, we would have a change in motion. And we would see that if they were moving 2 meters per second, 2 meters per second to the right, and now we have this force of friction acting on them to the left, we would actually see an acceleration to the left. Right? So if we have an acceleration to the left, that means that we are going to slow down. And so if the skateboarder has the force of friction acting on him, and you can think about this as if you just imagine a skateboarder moving with a force of friction acting on them, they are going to slow down. And so they are going to decelerate because of that force acting on them to the left, an unbalanced force. So we have this force here. If the following forces were applied to an object, let's say it just started off at rest. Are they balanced? Well, these forces right here, we can see that our up downs are about equal. So those are balanced. We look at our left right, and our right force right here is bigger than our leftward force. And so we would say that these are unbalanced forces. Unbalanced forces. And that would mean that they're going to affect the motion of an object. So let's look at how this would affect an object at rest. Well, if we had this force acting onto an object, we would have an unbalanced force to the right, and it would accelerate to the right. It would start to speed up, it would start moving. Now, and that makes sense, right? If I was just standing there and all of a sudden somebody pushed me over to the right, I would move towards the right, I would accelerate. If something was moving, let's say it was moving left, right? We look at what that could possibly do to it. If we have something that's moving back this way and we push against that motion, right? I'm adding a force against that motion. What's going to happen is this object is going to slow down, but it's not just going to turn around right all at once. It's going to keep moving to the left and it's going to slowly slow down, right? But it's going to keep moving left. Right, until it gets to a certain point where it stops, right? Eventually I'm going to slow it down enough where it's going to stop. And then if I keep applying that force, it's going to move back to the right. But just know that we have an object moving to the left and we have an unbalanced force acting on it to the right as if I was pushing it. That object is going to start slowing down. If we have an object that is moving Let's say it's moving right. Let's say you're just kind of skating along over to the rightward, and so all of a sudden someone pushes you in the same direction that you're moving. Right? Well, now I am going to have that force, and I'm going to speed up, and I'm going to move right because I'm already moving in that direction, and somebody's now pushing me in that direction, so I'm going to speed up towards the right. And so what the point of this video is to just get an idea of how these balanced and unbalanced forces affect the motion of an object. If we have an unbalanced force in the direction an object is already moving, it's going to speed up. If we have an unbalanced force in the direction against an object moving, in the opposite direction that an object's moving, that object is going to slow down. And if we have an unbalanced force acting on an object to the rest, it's going to start moving in the direction the force is pushing it. And if we think about a balanced force, if it's already at rest, right, and the force is acting on our balance, it's not going to do anything. And if it's already moving a little bit, it's going to move at that constant speed. There's not going to be any change in the motion of that object. And so I hope that this video helps you to understand how balanced and unbalanced forces are actually going to affect the motion of an object.